how to grow your business to 9 figures in today's episode with Luke Peters. Luke Peters is the visionary founder of Newair. Luke launched Newair from his garage and over 21 years transformed it into one of America's fastest growing private internet retailers with over $600 million in sales and a peak of $80 million in a single year. Now, as executive chairman, he leverages his experience to guide entrepreneurs towards successful exits through Apex CEO. The first question is, you started Newair in your garage and you scaled it to $600 million in sales. Can you tell us about your early days? What was your vision for Newair?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Hey, Lily. Yeah, thanks for having me. Initially, there wasn't a clear vision. It was like a lot of businesses that you start where you're, maybe starting it for different reasons, trying to get away from having a day-to-day job and just trying to create something where you can have more earnings and flexibility in your life and create a better kind of path for your family. So those early on, that was really the ambition, was to kind of build something a little bigger than just a job.
Thank you. So how did you stay focused on scaling the business?
Well, I think, with a lot of businesses, a lot of it is some of the pressure you put on yourself, right? So once you're all in and once you maybe quit your job and you're running your business and you still have the pressure of a mortgage and family responsibilities, you are forced to figure those things out. So early on, that's what it was about. And also just, your personal drive, right? We all have a drive to succeed and to be the best that we can be and to produce a great product and not let others down. So it was a lot of those internal things that drove me.
Thank you. Tell us about some of your key milestones that led your business towards the 9-figure mark.
Sure. The key milestones. So early on, we were 100% direct to consumer. And that worked great. And that was a model that was working, early on. And we're talking about 2001 to 2008. And then what happened was large retailers started getting involved in the .com business. So early on, you really weren't competing with, say, Target or Walmart or Home Depot. They weren't really one of your competitors. Then they got into the industry, and obviously they have large marketing budgets and big teams. So there was a decision, what direction to go. And we went from a direct-to-consumer opportunity to basically a multi-channel where we were working directly with them, eventually getting our products in their stores. So that was a big pivot for the company because a lot of things had to change. Things you don't really think about as well. Things from like your marketing strategy all the way to your financial strategy and finances and how you're collecting ARs. When you're cash, you're not collecting ARs.
Thank you. Tell us more about how did you get your first 1,000 customers?
Sure. That was just all SEO at the beginning. That was basically just organic SEO, Google marketing, content creation, and just putting great content to use and building a lot of traffic for the website.
Thank you. How did you reach from your first 1,000 clients to your next milestone, let's say 10,000 clients?
Yeah. So during our kind of growth story, we moved warehouses over 6 times. Okay. So we went from one to the next, to the next, to the next. So a lot of it was, scaling the business as anybody would do as we're scaling the business. But I guess at the heart of it is product development. Okay, so if, whether you have a software product or a hard product, it's really focusing on your product and making sure that you have the time to keep developing new products, and that's what we continue to do. So we branched out into new categories and diversified our products and built a true brand over that period of time.
Thank you. What was the number of clients you've reached at the peak of your success with the company?
I actually don't have that number, but it's over 1 million, customers, I'm sure, because of direct to consumers.
Thank you. How did you manage to go from your, 10,000 clients to your 100,000 clients?
Okay, so yeah, during that time, a lot of it is product development. Okay, because if you're very narrowly focused on your products, you can do great if you have an amazing product. So there's 2 ways to go about it, is to just dominate that one small product category, or you could do what we did, which was kind of expand our products to more kitchen areas. So we're selling appliances. And we're making we're making fun appliances, right? Beer coolers, wine coolers, fun ice makers, cigar humidors, stuff like that, that has a appeal. And it's really fun on social. It's not just like a boring refrigerator. So I would say just broadening that category. That way, if a customer came in and bought one, maybe a wine cooler, they might also want a beer cooler. And, just being able to sell more than just one product to a customer.
Thank you. Newair hit a peak of $80 million in 1 year. What were the main drivers behind this rapid growth, and how did you manage the operational challenges behind scaling to this amount?
Yeah, well, so like I mentioned, we moved to I can't even remember, but I know it's 6 or 7 warehouses through the years. So there's a lot of operational challenges. And at the same time, as you grow your sales, now you're dealing probably with new customers, like the larger ones, like Home Depot. Obviously a lot of people sell to Amazon, but we had a direct vendor relationship. So what you need is a team. You need an amazing team. So luckily during that time, we also grew a very good leadership team. And that team, when you have experts in charge of your supply chain, in charge of your sales, in charge of your marketing, and finances especially, it makes a big difference.
Thank you. What was your approach to leadership and hiring to make sure that you had the right team?
Yeah, good question. So early on, before I knew very much, it was hire for sort of what you hoped somebody could turn into. Okay, so their potential, let's say, which is fair, when you're a smaller business and you can't afford the top talent. But later on, what I learned is it's absolutely worth hiring the best talent. They're going to bring something to you that you would never get, even if no matter how many promotions you can do within. And I know we all want to promote from within, and I definitely did. But if you need to bring transformational change to your company, it's a lot easier to bring it from the outside because they've done it at another company. So you're basically hiring someone who's already done that thing you need, and then they come to your organization. And we worked with some really good recruiters, just a couple really, really good executive recruiters who are excellent at finding the best talent. They're experts. They're better than any of us could ever have done that process through Indeed or something like that. At that level, it's really advantageous to work with an executive recruiter.
Thank you. How did you manage to retain and motivate that team of leaders that were already so good at their job?
Yeah, another good question, because if you hire those leaders and you don't have the processes at your company, you don't have the organizational structure, you're going to lose them. So first off, you have to have structure. They're going to come in and they don't have a budget to work off of, or things are not, there's no discipline, or people don't really have like very defined job titles. These are things that happen in smaller companies, right? These leaders will get in and they're going to be kind of lost. They're used to coming from these larger organizations and all the structures built in, and they know how to function within that type of framework. So we did build quite a bit of structure later on in the company, so I would say after year 15. And the other thing is, top talent, they're going to want some skin in the game. So, there definitely needs to be like maybe a review of your bonus and your compensation structures. Maybe, different types of ways, not direct equity, but there's ways you could do some sort of phantom equity and other, say, skin in the game and bonuses, maybe on a big event. Like, for example, when we sold, there was definitely some opportunity there for some of the executives.
Wow, that sounds very clever to incentivize the leaders in order to not only stay, but produce the best work. So they have skin in the game. I love that. As an online retailer, what were the key strategies that helped you stand out in such a competitive environment? And how did you leverage e-commerce to drive growth?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Lily, the way I think about it is building a brand is first of all, like, what's a brand? A brand is what people feel about you. It's a feeling that people have. Okay, so I read a lot of branding books, and it almost makes it unattainable to get there. Like how to build culture, how to build brand. There's simple ways to do it, and you'll get 80-90% of the results, as if you did the more complicated way, which is, like I said, unattainable because it would take your total focus, and you have to focus on your whole company. So on the branding part, I just kind of took a very simple approach, which was, how do we get people to talk about us? Okay, so we're selling appliances. Okay, we're not selling like super exciting stuff. We're not selling, I like photography. So we're not selling like cameras, which are really cool to talk about and fun online. We're not doing that. So it was a little bit harder to get people to talk about us. But We were able to do that through a bunch of collaborations and an influencer marketing campaign that I put together. And it was a very unique strategy where we would get our product into the hands of influencers, which is not unique, but it's very unique in appliances, especially at the time that we did it, right? It was back a couple years ago, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, it was common in fashion, common in beauty, common in electronics, not common in appliances. So that was a way that we were able to differentiate ourselves. And when people see others using your product and talking about it, and they have trust in those people, that's a great way to grow the brand.
Thank you. You talked about multi-channel marketing, and I'm wondering, what kind of channels did you have your product in? You mentioned a few things, but I'm wondering, are there more? And also, how did you manage to get those kind of collaborations where certain stores would be willing to put your product in?
Sure. So, multi-stage. So first of all, those stores, they love a great brand story. So it's always good to work on your brand, grow your brand. And then if you think of what your brand is, like we said, it's a feeling, but it's also, you want to work on the top of the funnel. So you want to be, have a good Instagram, make sure your channels are, and that you build a decent following, and look at your peers. How do you compare against your peers? So then when you go to pitch, say, to somebody like a Home Depot, they're going to look at those things. And so if we were in a very competitive space, we would probably have to have millions of followers. But again, for appliances, that wasn't the case, right? You could have we didn't need that. We had maybe 60,000 or something like that. I can't remember what it was on Instagram at the time. But that was significant, actually, because in our category, we were like the top in that specific little niche of ours, right? And so that's one way, is to build that relevance outside of just your product, have great reviews, have a good sell-through. Okay, normally a lot of stores want to test first. So they test by seeing how your sell-through is. And if you could drive traffic from your outside channels, not just if you're selling on Walmart or selling on Home Depot. So there's going to be traffic coming from those channels, and there's paid ads coming from those channels, but maybe some of your social traffic and direction can be pushed onto those listings, right? And you could maybe move a little bit more that way. So they're going to look at sell-through, they're going to look at returns, they're going to look at customer feedback. And then when you pitch to them, it's important to kind of understand the pitch process. You don't want to look like a rookie. So they'll have what are called line reviews. It's totally different than selling on Amazon. It's a whole different ballgame. So a lot of times people will hire outside sales reps to help them with that process on their first time. And some of those reps are good. They understand the process. They don't really vouch for you that much. They have a lot of brands they're pitching, right? So you're just on their radar maybe that day. But for your first time, they can help you because they understand the process, say the language, that a Home Depot buyer is going to use, and they kind of know how to do that communication to kind of get you in the door there.
Thank you. I'm also wondering about when you are trying to get your products into a large store, I think the terms can be completely different, whereby maybe you have to give them the product for, let's say, a few months, and then they will actually end up paying you 4 months later versus the date that you actually gave them the product. Is that correct? And also, if that's the case, then how do you manage that kind of like lack of funding, because you've already invested in the product and then now you need to get more to kind of try to sell it somewhere else and so on. So I'm wondering about the cash flow issue.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So of course, direct to consumer, you're collecting cash right away, right? And so that's why during that pivot, and so direct to consumer, you don't really have to have a sophisticated accounting team or system. You're just collecting everything. Then when you switch to selling B2B, let's say, to other customers, they're going to have terms, which could be 90 days or so. Yeah. And then so you have to collect your payment. And then also there's a lot of cost that can be involved. So it's not, I think if you're not prepared, you definitely can get caught off guard, because your margins need to be much higher for this B2B, because not only do they need to make money, you need to make money, but then there's something called allowances, okay? And that's like their cost that they will throw in there. So you need to read the agreement, understand all of the allowances, and then probably put some additional padding on because some surprises. So what happens is, they charge you 5% for this, 3% for that, and these add up, and it's not uncommon to be between 15 to 20% allowances. So those are all the things to consider. And then to get payment, generally they pay on time, but that could be 60 to 90 days. That's all part of your negotiation up front. So these are not things to assume you have to accept 90 days. So let's say you're doing business with a large retailer and they send you the sheet. And a lot of young entrepreneurs may think that they have to accept it. No, you definitely can push back on these things. You can, like I always say, it's give for give. Okay, so that means if you're going to give something, they need to give something, right? It's not like you just give and they don't give. So what you have to do is you have to figure out what you want to negotiate. Do you want to negotiate the terms? Do you want to negotiate the allowances? Do you want to negotiate your prices? Maybe you're fine with the terms if they accept your high prices, right? So it's all negotiation. So I just want to say, and there's a lot more to talk about there. And then as far as on collecting cash, definitely like any business, once you go this route, first of all, you're paying money for inventory, and that's not turning as quickly as we all hope it will turn, right? So you have cash on the shelves. Now here you're selling and you got cash in their bank account. So what sophisticated companies do is they work with their bank and they get what's called an asset-based line of credit. Okay, it's called the ABL. So that's a little different than a typical line of credit. And what the ABL does is it fluctuates to the level of your assets. And your assets we're talking about here are your inventory and your receivables, which is the money that's owed to you. And so as you get to a certain level, you can get an ABL loan. And usually the rates are very favorable on those.
Thank you. Do you have to have a really great credit history in order to get that?
I wouldn't say a great credit history. It's a little bit different. Obviously, you don't want a bad one, but I don't think they really check your credit. They're more checking your cash flow. Okay, is this customer, the way they're checking credit worthiness is what cash has the company generated over the last 3 years? Not just net profit, but cash flow, right? Which those are two different things. So they're looking at that. And then they're looking at the size of your business, because this is usually, I think, I don't know the minimums, but usually this would be for companies that are, say, 5 or 10 million at a minimum to get this type of loan. They call it a loan facility. And the thing that holds a lot of companies back is you have to have sophisticated financial reporting. So you need to have, you probably have to have in-house accounting at that point. You're not just working with a bookkeeper, because they're going to want sophisticated cash flow statements and monthly reporting probably. But this is your path as an entrepreneur. This is your path to get out of a personal guarantee. Okay, so a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about that. So early on, maybe you have no debt. Then you take on debt in different forms. Maybe it's a line of credit. And if you own a home or whatever, all of that is at risk. Now, banks never want to go take your home, by the way. They never want to. But the point is, you're still personally at risk. Now, when you go to an asset-based line, it's on the company, and your name, it can be pulled out of that, which is a nice stage in your journey to get to.
Thank you. Are you able to get this kind of loan even in advance of you purchasing the product? Because let's say you have an order from Home Depot, whatever, and let's say you've been generally trading direct to consumer, and of course you sell something, you get the money, it's like all, very quick and easy. But when, let's say, Home Depot will, asks you for an order, then it's going to be, hundreds of thousands. So how do you come up with that money? Is it still through this like loan facility?
Probably not. That's different so there's a lot of custom deals that can be cut, and they'll call that PO financing. Okay. That's generally outside the scope of this. Generally the rates are going to be not as favorable, and that's usually maybe even different bankers that you go to. It depends. If you're established with your bank and you've been working with them for 10 years, and you already have, this facility set up, and they know your business. A lot of it is about comfort. I think a lot of people get the wrong sense of bankers. A lot of it is about the numbers, but there's a good segment that really is about personal comfort and trust. So if you're working with someone a long time, then they could help you on the PO financing. But you might have to go to some third parties and outside resources for that as well.
Thank you. I notice a lot of superstores do deals sometimes that are kind of store-wide. So let's say 3 for 2 or whatever. And I wonder whether when a store does that, does it like automatically impact your product too? And you have no say in that. You just have to kind of swallow that particular deal as a store-wide kind of deal. And is that how it goes? Or you have some say in what happens to your specific product?
From my experience, you have say in it, yeah, because you're the one who has to sort of join that promotion. So they'll call that like an internal promotion. So you're generally having to finance that. So that's how that usually works. You're usually not making a lot of money on that deal. But you hope to kind of maybe sell more units. Maybe you have too much in inventory and you're running a promo to get rid of some of your inventory. Maybe you want to launch your product and just get more attention, or there could be a number of reasons you do that.
Thank you. Thank you. How did you get the courage, the boldness, the strategy, the mindset to cope with such a huge goal of, even maybe it's not necessarily a goal, maybe you didn't even think of, okay, you're going to reach that particular amount, but how did you manage to come up with the courage to make this happen, to grow your business to 9 figures?
Well, I think a lot of it, funny enough, I think it's just being a little naive. I think it's nice to be a little naive sometimes, and I don't have a problem admitting that. So, and not overthinking these things, right? And I also really believe in having a positive mindset. I know there's, people consider that a little foo-foo maybe, or, like extra spiritual. And I'm spiritual, but I'm saying just on the mindset side, I think you want to be very open-minded and realize that a lot of people are held back by their mindset. So, books like Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill books, and those books were ones I read early in my entrepreneurial. And I think what you get from those books is that you really can achieve anything. I know that's like thrown out a lot to people. Okay, you really can, but what do you have to have in addition to that? You have to have a burning desire. So a lot of times people forget that part. They just have the part like you can achieve anything and all you have to do is think about it. You have to think about it, but then you have to implement it with a burning desire every day on towards your goal. And so that's what I learned from those books and was kind of able to implement.
Thank you. What were the most impactful things, people, situations, superpower team? I don't know. What were those things that impacted your growth as an entrepreneur so much so that you felt like you could grow your business to 9 figures?
Okay, during the different years, they were all different things, right? Because as you're, younger entrepreneur, you're learning certain things. And then as you're kind of like further in your journey, a little more mature, you're learning other things. But I would say, so at the end, I was able to sell the company. Okay. And that was a big milestone, because when you sell your company, it's kind of like, wow, at that point, you're sort of validated. Somebody wants to buy you. So it's a nice validation for your company. And in order for that to happen, a lot of boxes have to be checked off. You have to be making a certain amount of money. Your brand's got to be, strong. You have to be on a trajectory that somebody wants to buy you. So getting to that step was, what made the difference was honestly hiring in the talent that we had at that point. So it was about 5 years of really rehiring the key positions at the company and building processes within all of those departments. Also implementing a whole new business system, ERP, back in, I think we did that in like 2018 or 19. So all of those things combined give the company the processes. So you have the structure and discipline, and then you have the leadership from these talented leaders that we went out and found over the course of a couple of years. And so then when you go through a business sale, what happens during a sale is you're getting interviewed constantly. You're having to talk to many, many bankers and buyers and potential buyers. And so they're vetting you. They're asking questions like, obviously they have your financials, so they have that information. They're already interested, but they're finding out, who's behind this company? What if the owner leaves after we buy them? Who's going to run this company? What's the succession path for the company? How diversified is the company, their customer channels? So what are the systems at the company? Like if we buy it, or is everything in someone's head, or do they have all the systems down? So that's what they're asking, or they're really not asking. They're asking questions to get that out of you. And having those leaders made a significant difference.
Thank you. How important was it to have a personal brand while you were building that particular company? Were you going for the I'm invisible kind of image, or were you going for, it's so important for me to be kind of like the face of the company and to be liaising and networking with the right people in order to attract the right deals?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. I never wanted the company, all the deals to fall on me, because if I did that, then I wouldn't be able to sell the company. So I think it was important to know that I could be trusted, right? So you want to have like a reputable name. Trust is very, very important. I mean, trust is like everything in these deals, and even with the banks as well, right? Everything is about trust. But at the same time, I wanted to kind of shine the other leaders at the company, okay? Because if we're going into Home Depot, they might be the ones making that sale. I wasn't necessarily on every one of those plane flights. So it was nice to have that. Plus as a business owner, obviously there's two different ways you can go at it. When you have a strong personal brand, which like I'm building a new company, I'm going to need a strong personal brand for this company, okay? Because I'm doing CEO coaching. So for this company, it's different, because people are going to have to trust me to help them in their business. But for this other company, for Newair, the one that I ran for 20 years, if I had kept that personal brand the whole time, my life, it would have been too much work. Okay, so what you figure out is when you offload some of this and let others shine and let them and put trust in them, because they need to feel that as well, and empower them, your life becomes much better and much simpler, and you can work on the things that you want to work on.
Thank you. How important was diversification and innovation in order to help you grow a 9-figure business?
Yeah, very important. Okay, because again, if anybody, by the way, banks as well. So if they're lending to you and you have one big customer, they're not going to like that. Okay, they want to see diversified sales because it creates less risk. So when you think about how others, it's important to think about how others perceive you, from a negotiation standpoint, versus a lot of times we're in our own head and we're saying, my company has this, this, and this, but on the other side of the table, they're not thinking about that. Maybe they're thinking about risks, right? How could this company fail? What are the problem points? And so they're looking at the different risk areas. So you have to think about your risks, which is going to be your customer base. So typically over 25% would be considered too high for one single customer. So if you're direct to consumer, you're typically not going to have any of these issues, right? And that's why a lot of investors and banks love a big direct to consumer business. But a lot of times direct to consumer companies, all their sales go through Amazon. So are they really direct to consumer at that point? And so that would be a risk. So in our case, we were very fortunate because not every category has other big players like Home Depot, Lowe's. In our categories, we could sell to Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, all of them, every single one of them. We're in store at one time or another in most of those. And so that really helped us in that aspect.
Thank you. Where did you get the funding in order to start and grow your business? Considering that the products that you had to, let's say, sell to particular stores, you needed to fund those. So that's my question.
No funding. We just bootstrapped it. So basically we got the funding early on just from cash flow, just from making money. And for the first 8 years, we were direct to consumer. So that was good. We could just turn over sales into profit and grew inventory. And then eventually, as we shifted to multi-channel and business to business, selling to the retailers who then sold to the customers, then we had to pick up these different lending facilities.
Thank you. How important was your life partner in helping you to grow this business?
Right. So at the beginning, Marielle and I, we'd just been married a couple years. And so she was, she might have just quit her job. I was working as a hazardous waste scientist. Okay. And then, so I started the company at night. So I would build the website and kind of list the products, and during the day she was answering the phone call and filling the orders. So we have a lot of funny stories about that, but yeah, we have pictures of our garage, just full of just a house, and our packages are kind of big. Okay, if you could think of typical product is maybe 25 to 100 pounds, so they're relatively big. So if you could just imagine 50 of these big boxes in front of a house, and the UPS drivers, they don't want to pick it up, actually. I remember a funny story. I'll never forget this. They would not help her load the products into the car. Okay, this UPS guy would not help her load the product. So she's having to load all of these products in there. And I remember switching to FedEx later on, just on that reason. It's like, come on, that's what kind of customer is this? Or what kind of service is that, making her load all these products into the car. But those are the types of things that happen when you're starting a business. You just figure it out. Sometimes, you miss a pickup and you have all these products to ship, and she's driving around town looking for a UPS truck and flagging them down, and they pull over to the side and she hand off the products and they'd get to their destination.
Okay, so you would say that your life partner was instrumental in helping you, giving that initial hand to grow your business without funding.
Of course, yeah. Yep.
Great. What can entrepreneurs do in order to choose the right partner to build an empire with, just like you did?
Well, okay, that's hard. Okay, we were married, so and are, but it is very hard to get a co-founder. I don't have, I hear good stories and bad stories, so I think it's challenging. I think if you can do it yourself, do it yourself. Because it's just difficult with the co-founder because they may not have the same motivation that you have. Sometimes I think people want a co-founder because they want somebody to rely on, which is fine. Like that's kind of the reason. They're like, gosh, can I get this done myself? And if people find the right co-founder, that's magic. Okay, it's very difficult to do. But if you can rely on yourself and find a way to put pressure on yourself, but not in a bad way, and give it a shot yourself and see if you can get your idea off the ground.
Thank you. How did you manage cash flow, especially when you were kind of reaching 8-9 figures? How did you manage to do that?
Well, at that time you had a pretty sophisticated accounting team, right? And and it actually just gets harder as you get bigger, honestly. When you're smaller, it's more simplistic. You make money, you try not to spend it, and you reinvest. And then as you get bigger, there's almost so many things you can't keep track of that can become a challenge. So it's good to have, I always say, like, okay, early on, you need to have great marketing and sales. Okay, marketing is, because if you don't have good marketing, people aren't going to know who you are. So really, even marketing is almost more important than anything. But what's the most important kind of unloved category? That's going to be your finance. That's going to be your accounting, because it really is a superpower. So I think a lot of companies don't have a sophisticated accounting, and so what they're doing is they're kind of hurting themselves, because they're saying to themselves, I don't want to pay so much for accounting. Oh my gosh, it's going to cost this much to do my taxes, or I'm going to do this myself. But number one, you're probably missing on some incredible tax breaks, because a really good accountant is kind of like having a good lawyer, so they're going to help you with that. And then later on, you need to have accountants outside, but you need to have finance in-house, because they're going to keep track of your profit per unit. Okay, and if you're not keeping track of that, you can really get in trouble. A lot of companies don't realize, even if they think they know this, that they're not profitable on every sale. And a lot of times they may know that, but they don't know to what extent they're not profitable on every sale, right? So meaning, they realize, okay, yeah, it happens occasionally. Okay, but what am I going to do? Am I not going to ship to Alaska? Because they're unprofitable on the shipping to Alaska. I'm just giving that example. But that's probably happening all over their company. And a lot of times, let's say your company's doing 10 million and you're barely scraping by, you probably are doing maybe $1 million or $2 million of unprofitable sales one way or another. And so you could be a little bit smaller, but profitable. This is a very raw example, but the point is, to your question is, how do we manage that? Is you have to have really good people in finance. And this is a different level than just bookkeeping. Okay, this is someone more like a CFO. And nowadays you can get fractional CFOs. Okay, so you could have a CFO for 1 day a week, and it's like incredibly valuable. So, for any like up and coming companies, and they're not doing that, and especially if your company is complex. If it's real simple and you're selling one product and you keep track of everything, that's fine. But as you get more complex, this is very important.
Thank you. How did you handle pricing, brand differentiation, and the product differentiation and brand positioning in order to stand out from the competition?
Sure. So a lot of the brand positioning was done, with our influencer marketing. That was a great way to have other people talk about us without us having to talk, right? Back in the day, it was like, write a blog, everything. But listen, the brand's writing the blog. So people want to hear somebody who's authentic talking about them, and that you can do that with influencers. Still very easy to do today. And so we basically just managed it that way. And then on pricing, I mean, we did a lot of marketing, of course. We always wanted to have the best images and beautiful videos and, collateral. So every couple of years that got stepped up in the industry. What you could do 10 years ago, now you have to like go to the next level. So we definitely follow that trend. And then, as far as pricing, a lot of people undersell themselves on pricing. So pricing is a whole, there's books written on how to think about pricing, but a lot of people do what's called price or cost plus pricing. So cost plus would be, you buy it for 30, you sell it for 50 or something like that, right? And then others will do what it's called value pricing, or there might be a slightly different name for it, but it's more like, wait, what value are you, achieving in the marketplace? So and I think you want to find a balance. Yes, you have competition to look at, so you can't just totally outprice yourself. But at the same time, what I've noticed is you definitely, if you're the lowest price, your risk of failure is very high. So I've seen a lot of companies come and go, and the temptation was always to drop price and meet those companies. But then a couple of years later, they were gone, and we kept going along. So we maintained more of a premium price on our products, but we also had live customer service, and we operate our own warehouses and could supply parts. And so we're doing these things that a lot of our competitors were not doing. So the after sales service was much higher, and we wanted to basically just be totally vertically integrated in that whole area to serve the customer.
Thank you. What did you learn from growing a 9-figure business that you're now using as the CEO of Apex, where you're helping to consult with CEOs to help them grow their companies and have successful exits? Sure.
So I think what I learned there is after I sold, I wasn't sure what to do. So I took I was the executive chairman, no longer the executive chairman now. So I was for a while after. Actually, I ran the company, then I was executive chairman, now just a director. And so what I learned is, I've been in the same shoes as these other entrepreneurs, okay? Because we started from zero. So I know all the phases, 0 to 10 million, 10 to 50, 50 to 100. So all of those different stages and what it takes with leadership and marketing and sales and strategy and all of these things. And then I saw there are lots of coaches out there, but a lot of those coaches never actually ran a business. They might have been, maybe they were an executive at a big company, and they're probably fantastic coaches, but I think there's a mental component that I can relate to other entrepreneurs. And I don't just look at it as, a lot of times others will look at it as just a system. Okay, let's put this business on this system. But I think there's two parts that are missing that I want to add to it. And that's number one is problem solving. So if someone works with you, usually if you think about your business or others think about their business and, what's holding you back, it's usually a problem or an issue. Okay. And so we have our business, and then we have things that we want to work on, parts of the business that are not maybe optimal. And maybe we don't even know, okay, because we're in the business. Maybe an outside person could look and be like, no. Let's shift over to this, or let's do that. So that part is identifying the correct things to work on and solving those things, identify the correct problems or issues and solve them. And the other one is sort of the mental game. Okay. Entrepreneurs, we're in our head a lot. Okay. There's a lot of anxiety that's never talked about, sleep, health, how you think about your day and, how that's affecting your life and your work. I think that's a very important aspect of it.
Thank you. What do you feel is your USP as a consultant for entrepreneurs?
I think it's that I've been in your shoes. Okay. So as it maybe if someone talks to other consultants, but they've never actually ran that business or a similar business or any business, and maybe they've run a business, but how far did they get? So what I want to do is I want to get owners to the exit. I think a lot of times as business owners, they don't often think about the exit. Some do. Some think about it prematurely, maybe too early when they should be growing their business. But For many people who are running a company, the ultimate is to sell, okay, for many reasons we can go into. Tax benefits, you pull many years of revenues forward. Typically, if you sell for 5 or 7x, you're literally pulling 15 years of future revenues. You really are, because of how a transaction goes down, the tax benefits. When you're making money at your company, you're not putting that in your bank account. You're typically having to reinvest it, right? So not all of it, but some of it, right? Maybe if you have product, you got to buy inventory, or you have other ways that you're reinvesting. So you're really not getting, even though you're making whatever that is each year, you're having to reinvest it. That doesn't go into your account. When you sell, you're getting that lump sum of money. So you're really pulling forward. So in a different way, I want to help entrepreneurs think about that. And the way to do that is you have to kind of align your business with the interest of investors. So yeah, we all have, everybody's working on a great business, but what are investors going to think about your business? Okay, so you have to solve today's problems with your business, but at the same time, sort of understand what an investor is going to want maybe 2-3 years down the road and build towards that exit. And I think that's a special area that I can help in.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.